Sundara Khanda. There's a nice description. There's 8 different reasons given why Sundara Khanda is called Sundara Khanda. And I'll tell one that's just a funny story. It's not from our acharyas, it's from a nice devotee. When Valmiki was composing Ramayana, he was thinking of a name to call this Khanda, and he was thinking to call it Hanuman Khanda, because it's about Hanuman. But he didn't tell Hanuman, and he just asked Hanuman, "What do you think?" He said, "Call it anything, but don't call it Hanuman Khanda." And Valmiki said, "How about Sundara Khanda?" "Oh, that's a good name, Sundara Khanda. That's a good name. Just don't call it Hanuman Khanda." So Hanuman went to visit his mother, and as he was outside, he called to his mother and said that he's, "Vanjana, I've come." And she called out, "Oh, Sundara, please come in." He said, "Why'd you call me Sundara?" He said, "Don't you remember when you were little, I used to always call you Sundara?" So we went quickly back to Valmiki and said, "Don't call it Sundara Khanda. It is too late." Because the whole Khanda is about Hanuman. And it's Sundara for so many different reasons. The nature of the devotion of Hanuman for Ramachandra, and how elegantly and eloquently and thoughtfully and everything, how he speaks to Sita, his Sundara, and his strength, his Sundara, and his everything about Hanuman is very nice. He has, like Lakshman, has such a central role in the whole of Ramayana. And this is his Khanda, the Sundara Khanda. There's a nice drawing, very beautiful drawing of Hanuman. I've been speaking about Yamunacharya and his 18 cardinal lessons from Ramayana. As you may know, he also wrote Stotra Ratna. Stotra Ratna. It's a series of stotras, or prayers, and minus the Sanskrit, here's the translation of one of his prayers in Stotra Ratna. "You, Hanuman, are the Lord's servant, friend, carrier, seat, flag, canopy, and fan. You embody the 3 Vedas. Even in the presence of Garuda, you are graced with the honor of massaging the Lord's feet." So there's a commentary on this verse I'll read. As the Lord's friend, that's the first one, he enjoys the Lord's confidence and affection. Unless Hanuman had this special relationship with Lord Ram, the Lord would never have dispatched him to Lanka to deliver his message and his ring to Sita. Just like a battle flag, Hanuman always stood by the Lord's side. He was so tall that everyone could see him, even from a great distance. Seeing Hanuman, first, from afar, one could know that Lord Ramachandra was present. And when Hanuman served as the Lord's vehicle, his mighty tail waved behind like a flag. That same tail also served as a royal umbrella, a screen canopy, and a fan. In the role of the Lord's bard, Hanuman sang the Lord's glories for his pleasure Sometimes Hanuman carried out medical services also, treating the Lord's battlefield wounds. Thus Hanuman was the most adept of all of Lord Ram's monkey assistants. Hanuman is the most glorious, even greater than Garuda. As we know, when Ramchandra's pastimes ended, he took everyone wanted to go with him, but he specifically requested Hanuman to stay behind. And for the duration of the universe, Hanuman should sing the glories of Lord Ramachandra, which he continues to do, as we hear in the Bhagavatam also confirms the same. Kim Parushavarsha in Jambudvip. Very beautiful painting, huh? Bow of Ram, arrow of Ram, and the shoes of Ram, and he's singing and dancing before the bow, arrow, and shoes of Ram. Very happily. So where we ended, I decided where we ended yesterday evening probably would be most of the same people with us this evening as yesterday evening. So we're just continuing where we left off. And where we left off is Jambavan is reminding, after Sampati identifies where Sita is, they go around and asking the Vanaras who can jump 800 miles. And the only one that can do is Hanuman, but Hanuman doesn't say it because he's forgotten his powers, and Jambavan reminds him. And now all of his powers are being manifested, and he gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And he gets ready to jump. So the beginning of Sundara Khanda is a very detailed explanation of what happens when how he readies himself or prepares himself for the leap across the ocean. And that in itself can be a whole evening class, because the commentators are speaking of Hanuman being empowered by Ram as guru to find the wayward living entity, in this case Sita, who has been captured by Maya by thinking separately from the interests of the Supreme Lord, as she was thinking separately from Ram's interest in relation to the deer. So at the crouching and getting ready, this and that and the other thing, the mountain happens as he prepares himself. And each of those items, it's very poetic, not literal, it's poetic, that it's a guru how they ready themselves to carry out the mission of the Supreme Lord of bringing the wayward soul back to the Supreme Lord's shelter and service. Very beautiful. So one of the points that's mentioned, he's at the top of Mount Mahendra, offering prayers to Surya Dev, his guru, and to Vayu, his father. Now, within the Ramayanas, there's no explicit indication of how it happened that Surya became his guru, but there's an indication that he did. But the details of that is not within the verses of Valmiki Ramayana. And his father, of course, is Vayu. And before beginning any service that we do, there's, of course, empowerment. The empowerment is from Ram. But then to carry out the Lord's service, we call upon the blessings and benedictions of those who we look up to as our superiors. And that's part of the qualification of an exalted personality. They don't just act independently, they act with great regard and respect for those from whom they received their capacity to do service. He's fixing his mind, and he's preparing himself in all possible ways. There's some nice paintings of his looking towards this amazing service that he has to perform. Crouching on the top of Mahendra Hill, there's a number of paintings about his crouching. This is a nice one. And off he goes. The Vanaras are behind, cheering. And 800 miles is a big jump. Think about it. How far you have to travel by car, 800 miles. It's quite a journey. And in the course of his journey, he encounters three primary circumstances that are a bit of a challenge for him. The commentary says, or the verse says, as he's traveling, there's a nice breeze that Vayu has arranged to keep his journey cool and refreshed from fatigue as he was flying. But there's an obstacle, three principal obstacles. And the first one, who knows what the first one is? Crossing the ocean. Remember what the name of the mountain is? There, it's right on the screen. Mainaka. Mainaka rose from the sea, and Mainaka invited Hanuman to take rest. Now, commentators say the Mainaka it was a distraction. You take it easy, be comfortable when you have some important mission and service to do. So he offered his respect and wished to carry on. But then there's an important teaching. I mentioned it last night. Remember the teaching about gratitude it was this morning, as Lakshman was speaking to Sugriva about ingratitude has there's no atonement. There's atonement for sins, but there's not atonement for ingratitude. So here's the positive. Gratitude, krite cha prati kartavyam esha dharma sanatana. So esha dharma sanatana. This is the eternal dharma. Krite cha prati kartavyam. One should acknowledge and a favor and try to pay it back. This is Sanatan Dharma. Right within Ramayana are such important lessons. And what does acknowledging a favor? Someone has done something for us. Just like the Bhagavatam speaks of, as soon as you're born, you have so many debts. Pitri, Reen, etc., etc., etc. So, Dharma is to take responsibility for our debts. And we receive so many things, and having received so many things, when that strikes your heart, that's gratitude, and you demonstrate gratitude by giving back what from that source that you have received. From that source that you have received. That's gratitude. So the Mainda says, I've come because of my gratitude to you. And he first makes mention of the sea god had made this request of Mainda. So the sea god made this request of Mainda because the sea god had received some service from Ram's ancestor Sagara. 2 times. From Sagara, the ocean, the area of the ocean had been expanded. As the sons of Sagara were searching for the missing horse from the Ashwamedha Yagya, they couldn't find it. Sagara sent them again. They started digging and digging and digging. And they expanded the ocean. So the ocean personified was indebted. And also at a certain time, Agastya Rishi, who became angry and was drying up the ocean, and Sagara supplied water so that the ocean would become dried up. So the ocean personified approached feeling indebted and wanted to pay back with gratitude in his heart. He approached Minda. And Minda also felt some sense of indebtedness and gratitude, because there was a point in time when Indra was very angry with mountains, because at one time, according to Vedic teachings, mountains were able to fly. Now, today we don't see flying mountains, but there were flying mountains. Indra sent thunderbolts and was breaking the wings of the flying mountains. And Vayu rescued Mainaka, placed Mainaka within the sea so Indra couldn't harm. And Mainaka was now indebted to his Hanuman's father. And the ocean personified was feeling indebted to an ancestor of Ram, and Hanuman was in service to Ram, so he wanted to give this service. So Hanuman was respectful. He just touched the side of the mountain and said, "Thank you very much. Got to go now." And off he went. Distractions. That's the commentators speak of distractions. And when you have some mission, some important service, you be polite and be respectful, but stay focused on the mission that's in front of you, the service that's been assigned to you. And the service, it was very clearly articulated. 2 things. Find Sita, report back. It comes up in the rest of Sundara Khanda when he invites Sita, "I'll carry you." And she says no. And he says, "Right, I was just told to find you, not to bring you to Ram," because that's not what Ram asked. So as he's carrying on, moving at very high speed, there's a Rakshasa named Suresha. And Suresha was a Rakshasi who entered the sea at the request of Indra. Indra, not, testing Hanuman, or as Indra would sometimes do, stopping somebody because he's thinking he may be trying to take my post. He had, remember from the first evening, first time we discussed Hanuman, he was given many benedictions by the demigods because they knew he was going to help Ram. They knew it. Brahma said it. And so they all gave their benediction. So Indra wanted Hanuman to show some of his glory. So Hanuman made a request of a Rakshasi to enter the sea and challenge him. So the Rakshasi, Suresha, entered the sea and then rose up in a giant form as he's trying to reach Lanka. And with her mouth wide open, making loud sounds, challenging Hanuman. Suresha went into the sea and suddenly rose up in front of Hanuman in the form of a vast and terrible Rakshasi. She boomed out to Hanuman, "The gods have ordained you to be my food. O jewel among monkeys, quickly enter my mouth. Brahma has granted me a boon that none can come before me and escape being eaten. Suresha opened her cavernous mouth, which was set with rows of fierce teeth. Some interesting paintings of Suresha. Hanuman smiled and said to the Naga goddess, I'm on a mission to serve Ram, the Lord of creation. You should not impede me. If I must be eaten by you, then pray, wait here. Once I have completed my duty, I shall doubtlessly return, and you can devour me as you please. The Naga replied that Hanuman would not be able to pass by her, for such was the boon given by Brahma. She expanded her mouth even more as Hanuman came closer. Her jaws stretched for 8 miles. But Hanuman grew quickly to 16 miles. She then expanded her mouth to 20 miles. And Hanuman again exceeded that size with his body as the Naga grew even further. Hanuman suddenly contracted himself down to the size of a thumb. Entering her mouth, he went inside her throat and quickly came out again. He returned to his normal size and said, I've honored Brahma's boon. Now let me pass and fulfill my mission. I wish you well. The Naga goddess resumed her original form and praised Hanuman, blessing him to be successful in his quest. Hanuman moved on with the speed of Garuda. The story is very exciting. I'm in the process doing all of this, a little sharing. Doing all of this has inspired me significantly, specific about Hanuman in relation to reaching the Chinese population. Little history is in the 7th century, there was a Buddhist monk named Shenzhen who was learning Buddhism during the time of this and that and the other dynasty that were ruling in this and that and the other part of China. And he found there were multiple Buddhisms, Buddhist teachings, and he was confused what's the real one. And he wanted to know what's the real one. So, risking his life with the government as well as crossing over deserts and so many things and mountains and tribes of people. And it was very risky. It took something like a year and a half or so. He nearly died twice, etc., etc. And his destination was where Buddha was born. And where was Buddha born? What state in India was Buddha born? Bihar. Born in Bihar. We went to that place, and there was one, because monasteries had gone down by that time in India, the influence of Shankaracharya, but there was still a very strong Buddhist center. And there was a priest who was over 100 years old and was simply waiting for Shenzhen to come. He learned Sanskrit, and he studied under this master for quite some time, and then received the writings of Buddha and went back again by land because he made promise to a king that he would return and spend time and teach his daughter and so forth. So he went back to China, and he was a scholar and an historian. So he kept very, very careful records of every place he went, and there were not very well kept records of anything. What was going on at that time, where is this and where is that, what did it look like, and who was the ruler, and, historical detail. So he kept this historical record of his journey. And about 900 years later, that journal, written in Chinese, was rewritten by a more popular writer in a book called The Journey West. The Journey West. And, like Radhanath Maharaj is The Journey Home, The Journey West. And in that book, in the rewritten form, there was a very important character called the Sun King, and he was a monkey. There's a name in Chinese. And I was told that everybody in China, your kids that go to school in China, there are 3 essential books that everyone reads. And that's one of them. So everybody knows about the Monkey King. And they know or kind of know about its connection with Hanuman and Ramayana. So there's a door that's open. The Chinese government doesn't have very really good relationships with India, as you know, for political reasons. But they still, the embassy has some special place on their website about Hanuman. So Hanuman's accepted. I have this inspiration of how to help the people in China, in a gentle way, come to understand something more about Ramayana. So one of the ways is the Chinese government has approved the publication of Bhakti Vikash Maharaj's version of Ramayana. It's shorter, but it's pretty close to Valmiki Ramayana. And just, the last 3-4 days, I've written to a friend of mine, Yogeshwara Prabhu, who's a writer, and during his earlier days as a householder, he had formed Bala books. He got Prabhupada's permission to write children's books, and one of his books was Hanuman. Really beautiful paintings by a professional artist, and he is enthusiastic to help me get the document, a digital document in the hands of the publisher that got the Chinese government to approve the publishing of Ramayana. So, because there's already some resonance with the Sun King, and everybody knows who the Sun King is, and he's a monkey. So, I'm just sharing. And this story that I'm narrating right now, it's very beautifully illustrated, told very simply, with Suresh's picture there. And Simhika is the 3rd obstacle, and she was also a Rakshasi, representing envy. She has the power to control the movement of someone passing over the sea by their shadow. So as he was zooming overhead, Simhika rose from the sea and was controlling his movements by his shadow. Simhika gazed hungrily upon the monkey's enormous body, desiring to devour him. She used her mystic power to suddenly seize his shadow as it sped over the water. Hanuman felt his progress arrested. He looked all around and saw beneath him Simhika's hideous form rising up from the sea, her terrific mouth opened wide to swallow him. She thundered like a mass of clouds. Hanuman fearlessly entered her mouth. As he entered her body, the siddhas and gods cried out, "Alas, alas!" But Hanuman, whose body was as hard as a diamond, began to tear the demon's vital parts. He cleft her heart in 2 and burst out from the side of her body. The Rakshasi screamed and fell dead into the sea. So these are obstacles in carrying out missions. Distraction from comforts, and in this case, Simika representing envy. See what they have to say. Hanuman, testing Hanuman's pride and false ego. So when you're doing service on behalf of exalted persons, sometimes there's tests to see, what are you made of? I mean, it's not, it's make sure that you're qualified to carry out this mission. And then when he reached the shore, the next personality he encountered was whom? Lankini. So Lankini has some history. Lankini was once the guardian of the abode of Lord Brahma. As she guarded the home of the creator Brahma, she became arrogant and egoistic about her position. She treated others in the palace with contempt, due to which she was cursed by Brahma to guard the city of the Rakshasas forever. And Lakshmi was apologetic, please, make her, do something to make it not so bad. She realized her mistake. However, it was not possible for Brahma to take back the curse. Instead, he gave her a boon. She will be freed of the curse only when a monkey will defeat her in combat and thus bring to an end the age of the Rakshasas. So there was this old fable that everybody knew, didn't put much stock in it because it was one of those fables, that Lanka would be destroyed when a monkey came. No, she wasn't thinking of that until after she got bashed. But you can see she's got a big body and she has a big club, and she was threatening, get out of here. Who are you? Where'd you come from? And I'm just a monkey, and don't worry about me. I can't harm anybody. But she tried to hurt him with her club. So she's a woman. He didn't want to hurt her. So he hit her lightly enough that he wouldn't hurt her, but firmly enough she was checked. And when she was checked like that, she then understood this is that same person that was told in the fable that Lanka would be destroyed when a monkey came. So she paid her respects, understanding the importance of his visit, and she quickly departed, and she ran to tell Ravana that the monkey has come, the time has come. He's got all these warnings and signs and things, and he doesn't pay attention. Then comes a really long and detailed section where the golden city of Lanka is being described. We often hear about the amount of gold in Lanka. But it was at night. He made himself small so that he would not be observed, and waited till nightfall so he could move about freely and not be observed. And his mission was the same mission: find Sita. Now, he had already been told by Sampati that Sita is in Lanka, and even he mentioned the Ashok Grove, but he started looking everywhere and everywhere and everywhere, and everywhere and everywhere, and in the palaces and in the homes, and he even went into Ravana's palace, seeing what he saw, as you see here, all the descriptions of beverages and intoxications and sleeping ladies and the inner chambers of Ravana. And where the central part of the palace is where the Pushpaka Vimana was, and everywhere he looked, he questions himself. I'm a brahmachari, seeing all these bodies of women everywhere. What am I doing here? Then he said, no, this is service to Ram. I'm searching for Sita. Then he admonished himself, saying, Sita's not going to be here. What am I doing? So he's not mental. He's just doing some refinement in his efforts, but he stays fixed on the mission. And he spends the whole night searching, and is unable to find Sita. So what happens when you have a mission? He's come all the way across the ocean. Then he starts contemplating, I can't go back and tell Ram, well, I made it here, but I couldn't find Sita. And, what's Sugriva going to say? As he's the king. And, I can't disappoint everybody. What should I do? What should I do? So it's a beautiful scene. He's perched on top of one of the walls of the city, and he's contemplating like this. And it's a nice, I like this scene, because we also get to a certain point when we're carrying out some service and it doesn't seem to be happening. His determination doubles. That's what he does. And then a light goes on saying, one place I haven't looked is the garden. Sita always liked gardens. Let me go look in the garden. Then he starts wandering around in the grove of trees and this is and that's. And he finds what he thinks might be Sita. He saw an emaciated woman surrounded by demonesses. And although she looked emaciated, etc., her beauty was nonetheless shone through. And he thought, that may be her. This is one of those very old style paintings. Hanuman's up there in the tree, and there's the Rakshasis with their weapons, and there's Sita trembling in their midst. And here's another nice painting. Hanuman had made his body very small, and the Rakshasis were dozing off, and Sita was in deep lamentation. So Hanuman began contemplating. Instead of just acting, a thoughtful servant will consider what's the best means of carrying out the service that's given to me. So he's thinking that Ravana has already used every possible trick to induce Sita, and if I simply come before her as a monkey or any other form, she won't trust that I'm anything other than Ravana or a messenger of Ravana. So what to do. And then he decides what to do. The decision is he's just going to sing the glories of Ram. And it's a very beautiful section, sometimes called Ram Gita, where for 95 verses, he's just glorifying Ram. Nothing but Hanuman glorifying Ram. It's really beautiful. And there's 16 verses that describe his form, 52 verses describe Ram's Leela, and the remaining verses are his journey on behalf of Ram to come to Lanka. And when he concludes, Sita's looking around. I haven't heard the message of Ram and the glories of Ram for so long. Who is this? Where is this coming from? And she looks up in the tree, because that's where the voice is coming from. And she sees Hanuman, but Hanuman doesn't move. He just continues singing Ram's glories and this is where he describes how he came on behalf of Ram. Now Sita, as you can imagine, not very comfortable and not so trusting. So slowly, Hanuman approaches Sita, he identifies that he's carrying Ram's ring and he would like to give it to her. Here's Hanuman's description of Sita before he starts these verses. Hanuman observed the grief of Mother Sita. She was lean and emaciated through long fast. She wore a single garment worked in gold, but dirty and ragged on her body that was covered with dust. There were no ornaments befitting her youth. Tears coursed down in torrents from her dark eyes. Her raven locks were twined in a single braid and hung below her waist. Heavy sighs burst out now and then. Overpowered with shame at being exposed to the gaze of strange eyes, she was tortured with grief at being torn from the arms of her beloved. Hanuman witnessed Ravana's torment of Sita, as he had seen when Ravana had came and taunted her. Then the Rakshasas tormenting Sita under Ravana's order, both of which made Hanuman burn with anger. But he restrained himself due to his higher mission. And there's mention here of Trijata. We're going to hear about Trijata tomorrow morning. Because the breakdown. Hanuman described Raman's birth in Ayodhya, and then that of his brothers Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughna. His travels with Vishwamitra, his marriage with Sita, his coming back to Ayodhya, his banishment, the wonderful loving exchanges Sita and Ram had at Chitrakoot, their travels in the forests of the Dandakaranya, Sita's kidnapping by Ravana, how it affected Ram. He sang with emotion how Ram was weeping and crying out Sita's name, searching everywhere. How Ram made allies with Sugriva, unto the point of Hanuman's search for Sita and crossing the ocean. All the impediments he met, he told everything, glorifying Ram. I am the messenger of Ram. I have come here. And Sita, where are you? Where are you? And then she saw Hanuman. But he kept speaking about Ram. And her heart, the first glory she heard in all those months about Ram. So then Hanuman came before her, offered her the ring, and Sita cried out, "You are the messenger of Ram." She said to Hanuman, "Of all the devotees, you are the greatest devotee. All that you have done, all the sacrifices you have made, jumping across the whole ocean, risking your life, here in Lanka all alone, there is no other devotee equal to you, O Hanuman." So, very, very beautiful exchange, very wise and very beautiful. He won her trust. It took, a lot of finesse and Ram's ring to gain her trust. And here it shows he's handing her the ring, and another painting where he's handing her the ring, and another painting where she's handing him the ring. He is handing her the ring, and she is very happy. She's overwhelmed with happiness, receiving this item of Ram. But then Hanuman offers, if you'd like, I can take you back to be with Ram. And it's a very interesting exchange. She says, "You're so small." How is that? So, no worries, I can make myself big. He made himself really big. But she refused. And she gave different reasons. Some of the reasons were that it would minimize the glory of Ram. Here's another nice painting. He's really big and she's really small. But she says, if you're traveling back with me on your back, and they're sending weapons, then how are you going to keep me on your back? You have to fight off the weapons. And as we're sailing across the sea, I might fall off just from the force of the wind. It won't be safe for me or for you. And besides that, Ram is the one that should redeem me. So she decides to give him a particular jewel that was a gift to her from King Janak during their marriage, that Ram would know what it is, and he would be very pleased to see this ring to verify with Ram that he actually found Sita. So this is another gesture. It's similar to Ram's giving his ring to Hanuman, trusting that you'll be the one, the Guru empowerment gesture or act. And this is Sita reciprocating with Lord Ram. I'm ready to be rescued. Please come quickly. So he asks for a message. The message is, ask him to come quickly. Ravana is a very dangerous person. He could do anything at any time. Please ask him to come quickly. So Hanuman left her in the garden, and then he had this added inspiration. Now, this wasn't asked of him. Finding Sita was now mission accomplished. But he also wanted to take the opportunity to give some information to Ram when he returned. Now remember, he has this benediction, he'll never be defeated in battle. So he's not worried. So he decides he's going to make a big mess in this very beautiful garden, and smash some of the generals and have make a big fuss. So he goes into the garden and starts breaking trees apart and making a lot of noise. In the background, we see Sita sitting there, but he is in another part of the garden. And Ram sends generals, and he's uprooting trees and breaking down golden walls made of golden bricks, knocking over entire walls, attacking Ravana's soldiers and generals and smashing everybody left and right. And they come out in large numbers, and he smashes the people in large numbers. He has this brass or metal pole that he's using to smash people and smash things, and he defeats everybody. So Ravana is really angered. He sends Indrajit. Indrajit uses some magic, and Hanuman is then stopped. And then the monkeys tie him up in ropes. And later we find out when the monkeys tie him up in ropes, they don't know, but it breaks the spell that Indrajit used by his magic. And he's dragged by ropes to stand in front of Ravana. When he sees Ravana, he has this reflection that there's such majesty and such might and such this and that. If only he could stand for virtue, then he could be by the side of Indra and protect the heavens. That he has, a powerful appearance. And then Hanuman is being asked, "Who are you, and what's your business here? You've wrecked the gardens. What's? Please speak." So Hanuman does what Hanuman does. He speaks very, very boldly. I'm a messenger of Ram. And in elaborate terms, he glorifies Ram's and instructs Ravana to return Sita if he wants to have his kingdom still in his care. returns Sita to Ram. Speaks in strong tones. And Ravana is angered. He gets angered easy. And, you say things like this and he gets really angry. He wanted to kill him. And Hanuman then made his body really big. And the ropes fell off because they don't have power like his power. And Vibhishan intervenes. We've heard this one multiple times. But here is Vibhishan intervening, saying, don't kill him. That's not within the codes of conduct. We're supposed to, you can punish a messenger, but you can't kill the messenger. And punish in a way that's commensurate with their wrongdoing because he destroyed the garden. So it was decided that his tail should be burned. Ravana thought that's a good idea because monkeys like their tail. So rags were gathered and soaked in combustible material, and here this painting shows Ravana is personally lighting that material. And Hanuman's quite okay with that because he has a plan. He's going to break free and burn down Lanka, which was prophesied by this legend. And he got the information that he wanted. He went here and there with his tail burning, and because they were going to drag him through the streets so he would get to see where everything is. So he could, and had a very good memory, so he could explain everything. Was the layout of the city to Ramchandra when the battle was to begin. So, it's well known. In the left side, the city is ablaze, and Hanuman looks really happy. Here he's in the city and flying around, and the city's ablaze, and many, many, many such paintings like this. So when the city's ablaze, he takes off. His tail is still on fire, and he then started having some second thoughts about what he just did. There's some more paintings. Hanuman's burning the city. The city's in chaos. Different styles and periods of time describing Hanuman's exploits. Very simple one. So here he is with his tail hanging in the sea, cooling off, thinking, job well done, but on the other hand, I was acting so impulsively, I didn't think about Sita's safety. Because she could be at risk or worse. From the sky, the denizens of heaven spoke to Hanuman, saying, all glories to the service that you've done. Don't worry, Sita's just fine. He's protected. So he's now reassured. He makes his journey back to the place where he jumped from, and he informs the Vanaras of everything that happened. The Vanaras become really, really happy, and they make the journey back to Kishkinda. There's this interesting scene where they are in this celebrated garden of the Vanaras with trees with honey and special fruits, and they're having a big monkey party. And the person in charge of that garden gets all disturbed and runs back, tells Sugriva. Sugriva understands immediately. They're in this celebrating mood because they found Sita. So Hanuman is brought before Ram. There's, of course, different paintings. Here he is with a nice mustache and beard. And here he is without a mustache and beard, living in a cave. And Hanuman's giving the details of his experience. And, of course, he shows Sita's ring. And Ram is immensely happy. Here's Hanuman giving Ram the ring, or the jewel. And Ram is overcome with gratitude. We heard One of the characteristics of Ram is even the smallest service that one does, he would always remember and feel grateful. So what to speak of the service that Hanuman has just accomplished? His devotion, total surrender, and love for Lord Ramachandra. Ram's words, I'm living in the forest, I have nothing. So I'm ultimately grateful to you, but I have no way to repay you. There's this cultural thing, when you receive, you give. We've been discussing this so many times. So all I have is my embrace, which is nothing nicer for Hanuman than Lord Ramachandra's embrace. As Hanuman has no attraction for wealth or any worldly anything. So many paintings of this celebrated experience of Hanuman receiving the warm embrace of Ramachandra. And that's the end of the Sundara Khanda. And it's been almost 1 hour. Now we have, here's what I was thinking to do. I was thinking to go through very quickly the Yuddha Khanda and not dwell too much on some of the details, because many of the things we've heard several times. And then tomorrow morning is another topic. It's, Tara, Mantara, Shabari, some of the ladies in Ram's Leela. Vijata, that's tomorrow morning. And tomorrow evening is a visit to Hampi. I'm going to go ahead with the Yuddha Khanda. Of course, they're in Kishkinda. There's some arrangements made. They get to the shore of the ocean. Ram wants to cross the ocean. Vibhishan surrender and everything. All of that happens. So we've heard those items several times. And they, the ocean personified, make this recommendation about building a bridge. And so they begin the activity of building the bridge. Hanuman's there, of course, and overseeing, along with Sugriva. These two are such important persons in Ram's activities. Notice in the lower left corner the squirrel, and notice in the painting on the right, there's the squirrel. He's got some nice service to do. And it's not in Valmiki Ramayana, the squirrel story, but it's an important lesson to meditate upon. And that Hanuman said, get out of the way, and Ram said, don't get out of the way. He's doing his capacity as you. In my mind, he's as important as you are. So someone may be, capacity for service may be lesser than another person, but we honor that one according to their capacity they're serving. That's a principle that's a Vaishnava principle that Ram taught through this pastime. There's our little friend, the squirrel, again, by the sea. So Ram is supervising. Now you can't really see Lanka 800 miles away like it shows in this painting, but that's what's going on. They're building the bridge. And it's not in Valmiki Ramayana either that the stones are floating by writing Ram's name, but some of the Ramayanas have that. And the bridge building goes on. Ram is supervising, and they're crossing, being carried by Hanuman. And when they get to Lanka, there's a whole scene. And that very first day, the battle begins. There's many things that happen even before the battle begins. But the Vanaras on one side, the Rakshasas on the other side. Big battle, big battle, big battle. This must be taking place at a later point in time, because we see Ravana coming out in his chariot, and Ram coming out in his chariot would maybe, the final end of the battle. The battle lasted, there are different understandings of how long it lasted, between 60 and 70 days total. That evening, something that's related to Hanuman, that evening, Indrajit came out in the middle of the night and he began firing arrows from the sky because he knew how to fly in the sky. And he was shooting serpentine arrows, even though he was invisible, using magic. And then this becomes important because Ram and Lakshman were bound, and seeing Ram and Lakshman bound, Hanuman is devastated. Jambavan reassures everybody, including Hanuman, as long as Hanuman is moving, everything will be all right. Garuda descends. As soon as Garuda descends, the snakes, the snake ropes are broken, and the news had gone back from Indrajit that Ram was dead. But now he's not so happy because he found out that Ram is not dead. And the next scene is Kumbhakarna being woken, and Hanuman is directly in battle with Kumbhakarna and so many others. And finally, Ram slays Kumbhakarna. Over on the far left, you see Ram and Lakshman. And Hanuman is doing battle with him. Big guy. Later, a very important scene with Lakshman and Hanuman is Mayadanava gave to Ravan at the time of his marriage a lance, sometimes called Shakti Shela, and he threw that lance at Lakshman and hit him in the chest. And so everyone thought he's going to die. Tushena, who's pictured there on the lower right, he's the physician. Remember his name because we're going to hear about him tomorrow morning. Tushena. So there's Jambavan over on the far right and Hanuman standing there and with his club. And Tushena knows the cure. So Tushena recommends certain herbs and knows where the herbs can be secured, the Gandhamandana mountain. So Hanuman is sent to Gandhamandana mountain to retrieve the herbs. When he gets there, the herbs withdraw themselves, so he can't find the herbs, so he takes the whole mountain. And he had to also defeat a whole army of Gandharvas because they were protecting the mountain. No problem for Hanuman. And here he is, returning with the mountain. And there's Lakshman with Ram holding him in his lap, worried about his well-being. And Tushena administers the medicine, and very quickly Lakshman is restored, his health, everything, and everyone becomes happy again. So twice they thought Ram and Lakshman were dead, or now that Lakshman is dead, but he's not dead. And the battle continues. And Hanuman certainly is involved in many of the battles again and again and again. Because of time, I'm not going to go into the details, although it's exciting to hear the back and forth of the battle scene. But here we are with the final battle between Ram and Ravan. with the Vanaras carrying stones and sticks and trees and things for their weapons. And ultimately, Ram prevails with the help of Vibhishan to know how to destroy Ravana, because otherwise he can't be destroyed. So Hanuman returns back to Ayodhya with everybody after the battle is over, and he remains in Ayodhya until Ram departs. He's a fixture in Ram's Leela. There's a nice description as the Lord friend. Yeah, this is where this verse by Yamunacharya comes. This Stotraratna verse. He has such a all-around special relationship with Lord Ramachandra in his pastimes and even after his pastimes. He's the emblem of ideal service. Okay, that was pretty quick. Oct Khanda is over. So let's see if there's some comments or discussion on anything you'd like. I see a hand up back there.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for the wonderful class again. It's very, very sweet to hear Ramayana every day. My question is, Guru Maharaj, actually, Lord Rama's, as per your explanations, Lord Rama's instruction is for Hanuman, go find Sita and come back. But when he saw Sita Devi, Hanuman took initiative to ask her, I would take back with me if you can come. So he wanted to take back Sita. And also later he smashed all the soldiers and also smashed trees and gardens and everything. But when he comes back, Lord Rama was so grateful to him and he was so happy and he embraced him. So how do I understand that, when Lord Ramachandra's instruction is just go, find Sita and come back. But Hanuman did lot of things there. But Lord Rama was also happy. So can you please?
Yeah, I understand your question.
Thank you so much.
He couldn't bear to see Sita's circumstance. So he wanted to do something. It wasn't an instruction. If you see Sita's circumstance being horrific, you can bring her back. He didn't give that instruction. But it was too much to bear to see her in that condition. And when Sita's answer was given, immediately he accepted. But he was inspired by a mood of service to Ram, and seeing Sita in that condition, he couldn't bear to see it. So that's what inspired him to do, although it wasn't the explicit instruction. And the other was extra service. We read in Bhagavad Gita, there's 3 kinds of service, right? There's routine, there's emergency, and there's discretionary. So he had done his service, and now there was some discretionary opportunity. He could do some, gathering of intelligence to see what's going on, what's the strength of the army, because that's questions that Ram's going to ask. So he would test it. And he wanted to convey his message to Ravan. Because it's part of, it's not just part of challenging him, it's part of not having a war. You look for solutions before having a war. And that happened also when Ram's army arrived. Angada was sent. Let's not have war. Just return Sita and everything's nice. and he tried to crush him. So, but it's just part of culture. Now, it was not asked of him to do, but he did. It was discretionary service.
Wonderful, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much. I have another question, Maharaj. In the presentation, it was mentioned that Surya is the guru of Lord Hanuman. So, can you please elaborate on that more, Maharaj?
Not much. Because there's not much written about it. I've searched, and there's not much written about it. So I can't say much more. It's specific as guru in terms of learning of the Vedas, learning of grammar, because it was said when he met Ram and Lakshman at the bottom of Rishimukh mountain, he spoke perfect Sanskrit, etc., etc. His teacher in Sanskrit grammar and the Vedas was the sun, God. Now, that's all that I know, and I don't know more than what I know. Because there's no, I researched, but there isn't, I've asked other learned scholars, and there isn't anything. Now, there's some things that persons that aren't, they're just storyteller type people. And I know some of the things that those storyteller people said, but I'm not going to repeat them. But, all I know is what I know. He gave teachings in the Vedas and grammar to Hanuman.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. My last question is, Maharaj, when Hanuman came to Lanka searching for Sita, he was not able to find Sita for a very, very long time.
Well, how long? You say very, very long. That's two varies. How long was it?
I don't know that.
Okay, next.
And finally, he could be able to find Sita all by himself, or somebody had helped him?
No, he just, super soul.
Yes, Maharaj, I understand it. Thank you so much.
He thought, there's one place I haven't looked. And Sita really liked gardens. Let me go. Now, he didn't say, I remember, that's where Sampati said she was. He didn't say that. Maybe he also thought that, but it doesn't say that in Valmiki Ramayana at least. But it was those two things. One place I haven't looked, and it's a nice, natural place for Sita to be.
Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj.
And he even said, she wouldn't be staying in the palace anyways. I looked in the palace, but she wouldn't be in the palace with Ravana. She'd be outside the palace. Others? Anything? In the front here?
Hare
You're on.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So as we were discussing about how Lord Hanuman's journey represents a spiritual quest of a seeker, and the mind.
Not as a seeker, as a guru.
So in the beginning we said when the Mainaka mountain came, it's like a distraction.
Yes.
That we also experience with all the good things that we. And you also mentioned that Simhika represents envy. So can you please elaborate a little on how he represents?
On the path of service, there are in the field of the material energy, there are obstacles for fulfilling a higher purpose, a higher mission. And that's one of them. No, envy often is something that is in one's own heart, but there may be envy from others, and having to deal with envy of others is something that a person that's on a mission or a spiritual service mission may have to encounter. No, we can't do what Hanuman did. We can't survive what Hanuman had to survive. But, that's something that you have to encounter sometimes. Prabhupada would speak about it regularly. Those who, with Prahlad, Jesus Christ, this one, that one, Haridas Thakur, the life of devotion is beneficial for everyone. And there are some persons that just don't like it. There was a period of time I'm listening to a set of lectures in 1974, I think it is, and he's speaking again and again about the brainwashing topic. They're just envious and wanting to crush by saying bad things. So he encountered it. Anyone that tries to do some service for according to the Vaishnava teachings is going to run into obstacles like that. But he persevered, and was honored when he did so. Does that help? Okay.
I have another off.
Okay.
I'll
Speak
keep it-
right into the microphone, though.
Can I keep it to the end, or if anybody has any other question?
Okay, you have an off-topic question. Sure. Anyone else in the room would like to discuss behind you?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I have a question related to the jewel and the.
Slow.
My question is related to the jewel given by Lord Ramachandra and the ring given by Lord Ramachandra. Basically related to the jewelry that they were wearing. When they left Ayodhya, we also hear that they, came.
He gave his possessions away.
Yeah, gave up all the jewelry and
Yeah.
came out, in deer skin. And
He must have kept something.
Yeah, that's kind of the apparent
Anyway,
contradiction.
don't worry. That's
He's
a detail. Don't
Supreme
worry
Lord.
about it. Somehow he had something still.
Yeah, like for women, Mother Sita, I can imagine that she was wearing jewelry, even though she was going out in the forest with Lord Ram, because women
Do that.
do that. or did she?
Well,
in some time,
maybe it was a wedding ring. Who knows what the ring was?
yeah, but Mother Sita even dropped so much jewelry on the way to show, So it means that she was having.
She's the goddess of fortune. She can drop all kinds of jewelry. No problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, we'll come. Oh, we have something in the back. In the back.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for the wonderful lecture again. So we understand Lord Hanuman is like the epitome of Dasya Ras in Ramayana. Who would be his counterpart in Mahabharata?
Who what?
Who would be a representative of Dasya Ras in Mahabharata story? Like Lord Hanuman is...
Who's the equivalent of
yes.
Hanuman in Mahabharata? That's your question?
Who serves Lord Krishna in the Dasya Ras in Mahabharata?
Who served Lord Krishna like Hanuman served Ram?
Yeah.
That's your question?
Yes, Maharaj.
Do you want to make any suggestions? Here's a suggestion. How about Arjuna?
More of a friend, Sakyaras than
He was a
Das.
friend. That's a good point. But he was constant companion, and he was always in the mood of serving. But yes, he had a friendship that was more, has even more. Actually, your answer you just gave is in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which is when Narada Muni was searching for the greatest recipient of the Lord's mercy. He was sent to Hanuman. He was sent by Prahlad, whose perfection is remembrance. Hanuman is always serving. Hanuman sent Narada to the Pandavas because they're friends. They're always in his association. Maybe there isn't anybody comparable. That he's just such a charya for service that who can you can compare to. You can compare him perhaps to Garuda. They're often compared. They're both carriers of the Lord. They both travel swiftly and unobstructedly and always ready to do all kinds of service. Garuda, perhaps.
So much.
Okay. But we hear Garuda more in terms of Vishnu than in terms of Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. So again, on the topic of serving Lord Ram, Hanumanji said, don't just find Sita. And so he just found her and came back without carrying Mother Sita. Same thing like we read in Srila Prabhupada's teachings, that we must serve the spiritual master based on his instructions. So I've heard this one line that if he asks for water and if you give him milk or offer him milk, then that's not, I've heard that from somewhere.
Prabhupada said,
Yeah. So Maharaj, my question is, how do we reconcile that with sort of the desire to go above and beyond and serve the spiritual master with our understanding of our enthusiasm, or trying to please the spiritual master, or even trying to predict or understand the mood of the spiritual master and do something from our understanding which may not? How do we distinguish between where to draw the line to not go above and beyond and just carry out the instruction, not more? I feel somewhere it brings in also an element of dryness, that okay, he asked me to do X, I'll just do X and stop there. The lack of emotion, and which is very important in devotional service compared to impersonalism. All those thoughts come to my mind.
well, you're taking the instruction into an extreme, and that's not what the instruction says. Do this and don't do anything else. Now, if the instruction is just do this and don't do anything else, that's very clear. But this wasn't, just do this and don't do anything else. That wasn't the instruction. He fulfilled the instruction. He was meditating on finding Sita, find Sita, find Sita. He found Sita, and then not only find Sita, but do it in such a way that she doesn't get put at risk, he doesn't get put at risk, and he can get back and inform Ram where Sita is. So it takes intelligence even to do that. Now, in same question as earlier, that is, there's discretionary service or preferred, prescribed duty, emergency duty, preferred, or discretionary. So he's a minister, and he knows as a minister what the king or the person in charge needs without being asked. I mean, same thing happened with Lakshman. He was told, he learned a lesson, don't think independently. But Ram didn't give him the details. And if every detail needs to be given, otherwise I can't do anything because I'm acting beyond, what I was told to do, then poor gurus are going to be, stretched all over the universe. Too much. And then Ram complimented him. Yeah, I didn't say anything about making a separate room for Sita, but you did it. Very good. You've done so well. So discretionary service is part, it is the dynamic of, just be principle centered and select book distribution. So many ways to distribute books. Let's take, for example, selling sets of Bhagavatams. That was unheard of during Prabhupada's time, other than the library party that went around and universities and scholars would buy standing orders. That was standard. Complete sets of Bhagavatam sets and the numbers that are going on these days, and are in the public book distributors using other techniques, because Vaisheshika Prabhu said one of the instructors of marketing is you sell bananas in bunches. So sell a number of things when you're selling one thing, not just a magazine or a book, but sell a number of them. So they have this Saptarishi set. And because they just say it, people go, okay, great. And so they're selling 7 books at a time instead of 1 book at a time. So they're getting creative, following a principle. And so forth and so on. When we had Rath Yatra in New York, there was this idea, and it happened for 2 years. The Rath Yatra went down to Washington Square Park, and then a week later, there was a parade going back up to the temple. Following, Prabhupada didn't say to do that, but it's a principle. Not changing something, but, following a principle. The same with whatever service. No, don't go there with, it takes away personalism and enthusiasm, and it can't go beyond the boundaries of what I was told to do, and just follow principle. Use common sense. Without intelligence, you'll be stuck anyway, so use intelligence. That's my answer to that question. Okay, well, coming back to the off-topic question. Anything online?
So, Maharaj, my question is about a spiritual seeker. When somebody is on a spiritual quest, in the current world, there are so many paths that they can come across.
Yes.
So, my question is, what makes one get attracted to one process but not the other, especially to non-authorized sampradayas? Does that mean that their quest is not honest?
Their what is not honest?
Their quest is not honest?
Depends. My bad answer. It's, some people may take a detour just because they're curious, or something. There can be many somethings. But if one is sincere, then something genuine is what's going to attract the heart of someone that's genuine. Something genuine is going to attract the heart of someone that's sincere and wants the genuine thing. It doesn't mean that the teachers, they may also have not come in contact with something genuine. Now, they don't mind at all being not genuine, just having followers and having fun. Whatever, exploiting without having any qualification to give something genuine. But there are persons who are genuine who, during Prabhupada's time, there were many persons who were looked up to in society. I'm thinking now specifically, there was somebody here that graduated from UT Austin. Somebody in this community? Yeah, we were at somebody's home. He just graduated from UT Austin. Yeah. Okay, your brother. So I found by visiting UT Austin, doing book distribution there, they asked me, do you know Professor so-and-so? And I said, no. He said he was a guru on campus. He was in such and such department, and he had many, many, many people. and he heard about Prabhupada, and he went to Dallas, and he met Prabhupada, and they just packed up and moved into the Dallas temple. And then all the people that were his followers followed him because he wanted something genuine. And Prabhupada was a Baghdad, and there were iron filings out there, and they just went to him. There's without other examples. People were followers of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and because he wasn't giving something genuine, there are many people that were following him, and they came across Krishna consciousness, and they left that practice and came to Krishna consciousness, including teachers of teachers of his program. So, and it's also time and circumstance. Someone may have not sufficiently spiritually evolved, even if they're sincere. Their threshold of being able to receive isn't there yet. So, there's many different factors other than they're just like something wrong with them, or they're not sincere, they're not genuine. There's many factors. Here's something to contemplate, something that I contemplate regularly. When Prabhupada was present, his ability to bring people to bhakti was unprecedented. Now, the same teachings are there in the hands of others, but the ability to bring people to the bhakti process is the same. So the presence of an empowered teacher or guru or representative of Krishna makes a big difference also. You follow? So the real important thing for you and for me and for each of us is let us become qualified so that where there is some genuine seeker, we can be an instrument of Krishna and Lord Chaitanya to draw them to the bhakti process. With sufficient purity, then it becomes possible, and without sufficient purity, it's not going to happen so readily. And it's not their problem, it's ours. The deficiency is on our side, not necessarily theirs. That's how the application of that, the answer to your question is, let each of us become better instruments of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. Watch the magic happen. And know that it's not us, it's mercy of Lord Chaitanya acting. People, we just have to become qualified instruments. Okay, looks like we're done. In the Prabhupada ki Jai.